Hello friends. What happens when you mix the optimistic fire of Sagittarius with the sharp-witted ambition of the rat in the Chinese zodiac? You get one of the most dynamic, unpredictable, and magnetic personalities in the entire zodiacal spectrum. A Sagittarius rat is like an arrow shot from a laser-guided rocket. They're passionate, adventurous, and strategic. A person who can charm the world while plotting 10 steps ahead. But what drives them in love, in business, in friendship, and what shadows lurk behind that dazzling smile? Let's unpack the beautifully complex creature known as the Sagittarius rat. Love, the seduction of freedom and fire. Falling in love with a Sagittarius rat is like stepping onto a moving train that doesn't follow tracks, it makes its own. There's no map, no schedule, and definitely no round-trip ticket. One moment, you're laughing over cocktails at a dive bar they've spontaneously dragged you to, and the next you're 2 hours deep into a philosophical debate at a bookstore cafe. They don't fall in love like most people. It's not a slow burn, it's a spark that lights up an entire forest. But here's the twist. Once it starts, you have to run with them, not after them. These individuals love with a fiery boldness that can make you feel like the center of the universe, but if you try to contain that energy, even a little, they'll evaporate like mist. The Sagittarius rat is ruled by a combination of Jupiter, planet of expansion, exploration, and wild possibility, and the rat, a Chinese sign known for intelligence, cunning, and strategic charm. This combination makes for an unpredictable lover. They want someone who stimulates their mind first, that's the gateway. If you're not intellectually engaging, emotionally independent, and just the right level of mysterious, you won't even make it to date number 2. They're repelled by routine, repulsed by clinginess, and allergic to anyone who leads with emotional dependency. This isn't to say they're cold, far from it. When they fall with everything. But it's not the fairy tale kind of love, it's more like a choose-your-own-adventure novel, with plot twists, late-night existential conversations, and spontaneous dancing in the living room. They adore surprises, not the manipulative kind, but the "I saw this and thought of you" kind. To them, love is made of shared moments that are vivid, real, and completely unscripted. If you're hoping for Pinterest-worthy relationship milestones, you might be disappointed. But if you're looking for love that feels alive, that feels like motion, this is your person. Emotional honesty is a must, but drama is not welcome. A Sagittarius rat will vanish the moment they smell emotional manipulation. They need directness, clarity, and someone who knows how to manage their own emotional life without trying to offload it. These people are highly self-aware and demand the same from their partners. They admire strength, not the loud, aggressive kind, but the quiet, inner kind. If you can meet them where they are, without needing to hold them in place, they'll give you their wild, wonderful heart, and more. They're also incredibly flirtatious, but don't mistake that for shallowness. Flirting is their way of exploring chemistry, testing connection, and playing with possibility. It doesn't always mean they're serious, in fact, most of the time it doesn't. But when they go silent, when they start asking you the deeper questions, when they remember the tiniest details of what you said 3 weeks ago in passing, that's how you know they're hooked. Don't expect tradition. Valentine's Day might mean nothing to them, but they'll celebrate your weird little accomplishments with unfiltered joy. They're the type to show love in eccentric, personalized ways, writing you a poem, painting your dog, or sending you obscure memes that somehow always hit home. They love in layers, and their affection is tied to how safe they feel to be free within the relationship. Give them that freedom, and they'll give you a romance you'll never forget. But let's be honest. Loving a Sagittarius rat can be exhausting if you're not built for the ride. They require space, physical, emotional, and intellectual. They might need to spend a weekend alone in the woods just to recalibrate. If you interpret that as rejection, you'll feel hurt. But if you understand that solitude is part of their rhythm, you'll realize it's actually love in disguise, because they're only refilling their cup so they can pour more of themselves into you. The challenge in loving them is also the beauty. They evolve constantly. They're not the same person today they were 6 months ago, and if you try to freeze them in time, they'll slip away. Their love is an invitation to grow together, to explore new identities, to build a relationship that reinvents itself. It's not about predictability, it's about adaptability. Be the kind of partner who can surf the waves rather than fear them. Their past relationships are often a trail of passionate highs and confusing breakups. It's not because they don't care, it's because they're searching for a bond that can breathe, one that feels like home but doesn't trap them. Many Sagittarius rats spend years figuring out what love means to them. For some, it's a process of trial and error. For others, they avoid commitment altogether until they find someone who gets it, someone who doesn't try to anchor them but sails alongside them. The most profound thing about their love is that it's deeply authentic when it's real. They won't fake affection. If they say they love you, they mean it. If they stay, it's not out of obligation, it's because you've become a part of their ever-changing world, and they genuinely want to share it with you. They may not promise you stability in the traditional sense, but they'll offer something far more valuable: honesty, fire, and freedom, with you, not away from you. So how do you love them back? Let them be, let them grow, let them fly, and trust they'll come back. Because when a Sagittarius rat chooses to love you, they're not doing it because they need to. They're doing it because, out of all the possibilities in their infinite world, they chose you. And that, friend, is a kind of love that never fades. Marriage, a dance of fireworks and patience. Can a Sagittarius rat truly settle into the rhythms and rituals of long-term commitment? Yes, absolutely, but only if we redefine what settling down actually means. For the Sagittarius rat, marriage cannot feel like a final stop. It must be a launch pad, a partnership rooted not in static comfort but in evolving possibility. Think of it less like moving into a cozy home and more like building a spaceship together, with plans to take off regularly. This is not someone who measures the success of a marriage by how calm it is, but by how alive it feels. If you expect them to embrace conventional domesticity, white picket fences, grocery lists, the same dinner every Wednesday, you're signing up for disappointment. But if you crave a marriage that's an adventure in itself, you're in the right place. What they bring into a marriage is vision. Sagittarius is a sign that sees what others don't: big futures, exciting risks, new chapters not yet written. The rat enhances this energy with realism and shrewd calculation. The result? A spouse who isn't just dreaming, they're strategizing. When they say, "Let's move to a vineyard in Tuscany," it's not a romantic impulse. It's a viable plan they've already priced out. Marriage with them is never static. It's goal-oriented, bold, and peppered with reinvention. They want a partner who doesn't just nod along, but jumps in and says, "All right. What's our timeline?" The core challenge? Monotony. A Sagittarius rat in a stagnant marriage will slowly start to emotionally disconnect. They may become irritable, detached, or even begin seeking stimulation elsewhere, not always physically, but mentally and emotionally. Their loyalty is conditional, in the sense that it depends on their sense of freedom and excitement being respected. This doesn't mean they're incapable of long-term love. In fact, they're fiercely loyal to people who honor their full selves. But if the marriage becomes more about routine than growth, they'll lose interest, and fast. The key is evolution. A successful marriage for them isn't one where both people remain the same. It's one where both people grow, change, and re-fall in love with new versions of each other. They need a partner who's constantly leveling up, not in competition, but in synergy. Someone who reads new books, explores new ideas, and keeps bringing fresh energy to the relationship. Intellectual chemistry is huge. If their partner becomes mentally passive or emotionally stagnant, the Sagittarius rat will feel suffocated. They thrive with someone who brings challenge, curiosity, and a touch of unpredictability to the marriage. They are also deeply playful in marriage. A Sagittarius rat doesn't believe adulthood has to be boring. They will be the spouse who turns chores into a game, who turns a quiet night into a dance party, who brings home strange snacks from foreign markets just because. Humor is sacred to them, not just as entertainment, but as survival. They can forgive almost anything if you can make them laugh. A household with a Sagittarius rat will be full of absurd jokes, sarcastic banter, and oddball traditions no one outside your marriage will understand, And that's exactly how they like it. However, emotional games are where they draw a firm line. While they themselves can be spontaneous and unpredictable, they despise manipulation, guilt-tripping, and passive aggression. They are direct by nature, sometimes to a fault, and they expect the same in return. If they sense their partner is playing mind games or trying to gain control through emotion rather than communication, they'll shut down or walk away entirely. Transparency is not optional, it's the bedrock of trust. They can handle almost any hard truth, but they won't tolerate dishonesty, no matter how gentle it's framed. Another vital component is independence. Sagittarius rats do not believe that marriage means merging into one person. They see love as two whole people walking side by side, not as two halves trying to complete each other. Their ideal partner has their own interests, dreams, and friendships. They don't want to be everything to their spouse, and they don't want their spouse to be everything to them. Clinginess repels them. They need to know that even as a we, they are still fully allowed to be a me. That kind of space doesn't weaken the relationship, it strengthens it. It allows them to return home with stories, passion, and appreciation for the sanctuary they've chosen. Let's not forget their passion for shared purpose. While they value independence, they also thrive when the marriage has clear, ambitious goals, things you're building together, not just living through. Maybe it's a business, maybe it's travel, maybe it's raising children with a sense of global consciousness. Whatever it is, it must feel meaningful. They're not content to just exist alongside someone, they want to create a life with them. A Sagittarius rat in a marriage with purpose will light up in ways that are hard to describe. They become more generous, more affectionate, and far more willing to weather the mundane, because the why is clear. Patience is essential when married to this personality. Their energy can be erratic. Their moods shift with their inspiration levels. Sometimes they'll want to talk for hours about something they just learned, and other times they'll need total solitude to recharge. It's not personal, it's just how they process the world. A spouse who understands this rhythm and doesn't take emotional fluctuations as rejection will find that over time, the Sagittarius rat settles into deeper intimacy than they ever thought possible. But that trust takes time, and is built, not assumed. In conflict, they prefer clarity over comfort. Don't sugarcoat, don't sidestep, come at them with facts, feelings, and fairness. They're not interested in blame games. They want resolution, preferably one that ends in laughter and growth. But make no mistake, they remember disrespect. Words said in anger can leave long shadows. So, while they're open-minded and quick to forgive, they expect their partner to be equally accountable for their tone and actions. When marriage works for a Sagittarius rat, it becomes a powerful fusion of fire and strategy, love that dreams big and acts boldly. They become the ultimate teammate, co-conspirator, and life partner. Someone who will fight for the marriage just as passionately as they once fought for their freedom, because they've come to understand that the right kind of love doesn't cage them. It frees them even more. And for the person who can offer that balance of space and depth, chaos and consistency, the Sagittarius rat will become not just a thrilling spouse, but a truly devoted one. Marriage with them isn't just a relationship, it's a legacy in motion. Sex, adventure meets intelligence. When it comes to sex, the Sagittarius rat doesn't just show up for pleasure, they arrive for an experience. This isn't a Zodiac combo that treats intimacy like a routine. They treat it like an art form, a puzzle, and sometimes even a performance. With fire from Sagittarius and mental sharpness from the rat, this is someone who knows exactly how to push boundaries, tastefully, playfully, and with precision. They don't just want you to feel good, they want to know why you feel good, and how they can make it even better next time. Their version of sex is equal parts adrenaline and awareness. They'll surprise you, seduce you, and then challenge your entire concept of pleasure, all in the same night. Spontaneity is their signature move. They hate pre-planned, overly structured intimacy. Scheduled sex? Mood killer. They thrive in the unexpected. The whispered tease during a dinner party, the stolen kiss in the elevator, the playful glance that turns into something wild 2 hours later. They want every sexual experience to feel like a secret only the two of you know. This isn't someone who clocks in and clocks out. If it feels predictable, they're already drifting. But when they're surprised, when their partner brings boldness, mischief, or even a simple new idea to the table, their fire ignites tenfold. The rat influence brings in a layer of cleverness that most lovers don't expect. While Sagittarius brings the heat, the rat maps out the route. This person is strategic in bed, not cold, but calculated in the most sensual way. They study reactions, they notice breath changes, they read body language like a second language. And they remember, oh, they remember. What made you arch your back? What made you giggle? What made you completely lose yourself? They catalog it, not for control, for pleasure. They aim to be better every time, not because they're insecure, but because they're obsessed with progress and play. And yes, they lead. They love taking the initiative, setting the tone, starting the game. But they're not controlling. In fact, they love a partner who grabs the reins once in a while. Power play isn't about dominance for them. It's about rhythm, fluidity, and shared control. They're excited by unpredictability. Consent and communication? Essential. But once the rules are clear, they'll bend them in ways that make you question everything you thought you liked, and then show you new things you didn't know you could crave. Their erotic language goes far beyond physicality. For them, mental stimulation is a prerequisite. Turn their mind on, and their body will follow, hard. Intelligent conversation, clever banter, and unexpected confession, these are aphrodisiacs. They love lovers who can keep up with them intellectually and emotionally. They want to connect with someone who sees intimacy as more than skin deep. If you can discuss Nietzsche and try blindfolds in the same night, you've won their full attention. Fantasies? Oh, they have them. And not just a few, entire storylines, often with sequels. They're naturally curious, and sex is one of their favorite territories to explore. They want to try new things, break old patterns, challenge taboos, not for shock value, but to deepen connection and unlock experience. They may suggest scenarios you've never thought of before, but they'll always make you feel safe in the process. For them, kink is fun, but trust is foundational. They won't push you past a boundary, but they'll walk you right up to it, smiling, asking, what if? And yet, for all their boldness, they are deeply responsive lovers. They care about the shared emotional atmosphere, even if they don't talk about it directly. If the energy feels off, they'll notice, and it'll shut things down fast. They need realness, authenticity. They can sense when you're in your head or faking a reaction, and that turns them off faster than anything else. Vulnerability, however, even if messy, is wildly attractive to them. They want to connect, not just climax. The biggest sexual chemistry killers for a Sagittarius rat are predictability and emotional games. If you use sex as a tool for control or validation, they'll see right through it. If you fall into a pattern where intimacy becomes a duty or a habit, they'll start drifting emotionally. They don't need elaborate toys or wild props. They need variety, energy, and presence. They want to feel like you want them, not like you're fulfilling a marital obligation. Performative sex is their kryptonite, but playful, present, curious sex, that's where they come alive. Confidence matters, a lot. Not arrogance, but knowing yourself. They don't care what your body looks like, they care how you own it. If you bring insecurity into the bedroom, they'll handle it with grace, but if insecurity turns into neediness or guilt-tripping, they'll start to disconnect. They want someone who's okay with not knowing everything but eager to learn. Someone who can laugh during sex, try something weird, and then say, that wasn't it, but this might be. Long-term sexual relationships with them are never boring, but they do require maintenance through imagination. They're not interested in keeping a spark alive. They're interested in creating new sparks altogether. They want to evolve with their partner sexually, emotionally, and spiritually. Over time, their sexual style may change, soften, or intensify, and they want to explore that with someone who's just as curious about what's next. And perhaps most importantly, a Sagittarius rat lover sees sex not just as a pleasure, but as a conversation, one that's ongoing, intimate, and ever-changing. Each touch, each kiss, each shared breath is a question: do you trust me? Are you still curious? Will you go further with me? If the answer is yes, again and again, they'll give you a love life that's not just satisfying, but unforgettable. Because with them, sex is never just about bodies. It's about freedom, fusion, and the joy of never quite knowing what's coming next. Friendship, the unpredictable ride or die. Being friends with a Sagittarius rat is like having a best friend, a podcast host, a life coach, and an amateur stunt double all rolled into one. This is not your ordinary buddy. This is the one who messages you at midnight with, "Pack your bag, I found an alpaca farm 2 hours away and we're leaving at dawn." They crave experience, movement, spontaneity, and they want to share those moments with people who are just as open to life's chaos as they are. Friendship with them isn't about structured hangouts or routine phone calls. It's about a shared rhythm of discovery. They'll take you on mental journeys, physical detours, and emotional roller coasters, and you'll thank them for every wild twist. They are the spontaneous spark in their social circle. Sagittarius energy fuels their desire for freedom and truth, while the rat adds mental sharpness and a touch of mischief. This makes them unpredictable, in the best way. They'll pop up out of nowhere with a wild idea, a thoughtful gift, or a philosophical question you didn't expect but needed. One day they're debating metaphysics over pizza. The next, they're building a fire on a beach at 2 a.m. with a Bluetooth speaker and a bottle of cheap wine. They don't just want to hang out, they want to create memories. You never really know what you're getting into with them, but that's what makes it unforgettable. Despite their freedom-loving ways, they are surprisingly loyal. Once they consider you their person, they will defend you in rooms you didn't know you were being discussed in. They won't always check in, they won't always text back immediately, but if you need them, like really need them, they'll show up. No questions, no judgment, just presence. They're not the type to send daily memes or remember your cousin's birthday, but they will notice when your voice changes or when something feels off. And when they care with their full intensity. That's the ride or die part. They won't say it often, but their loyalty is deep-rooted and fierce. They're selective about who they let into their inner circle. Sagittarius rats don't do well with superficiality. They are drawn to people who are raw, weird, bold, or brilliant, ideally all of the above. They want depth without heaviness, honesty without cruelty, fun without pretense. They're not impressed by status or popularity, they're drawn to energy. If you're curious, funny, and comfortable in your own skin, they'll gravitate toward you. But if you gossip, complain constantly, or rely on guilt to maintain friendships, they'll politely, or abruptly, back away. One of the paradoxes of this personality is that they don't need constant contact to feel connected. In fact, if you try to cling or check in too much, they might interpret it as pressure. They value friends who trust the bond without needing constant validation. If you can go a month without speaking and still laugh like nothing changed, you're their kind of person. They thrive on intermittent depth, long, meaningful conversations separated by periods of silence or adventure. It's not emotional distance, it's energetic space. And the friendships that survive this rhythm often last a lifetime. Laughter is the secret sauce in their social life. Sagittarius rats treat humor like a sacred bond. If you can make them laugh, or better yet, laugh with them, you're halfway to best friend status. They find joy in the absurd, in witty banter, in shared inside jokes that span years. They use humor to diffuse tension, to heal wounds, and to test compatibility. Sarcasm is their second language, and they love friends who can take it as much as they can dish it. If you're too serious or easily offended, you'll struggle to connect. But if you can laugh at the chaos of life with them, you're golden. They're also emotionally intelligent, in a streetwise kind of way. They may not always express their feelings directly, but they pick up on yours with stunning accuracy. They know when you need a distraction, when you need space, and when you need someone to just sit next to you and say, "That sucked. Let's go get fries." They're the type to randomly Venmo you money with a note like, "You need chocolate," or send a song that says everything they can't. Emotional intimacy, for them, is quiet and intuitive, not dramatic or sentimental. If they show you that side, you're in rare company. And finally, Sagittarius rats don't just keep friendships, they elevate them. Time spent with them often leads to breakthroughs, whether creative, emotional, or existential. They'll encourage your wildest dreams, challenge your limiting beliefs, and cheer for you in ways you didn't even know you needed. They're not interested in surface-level friendship maintenance. They want to grow with you. They want to see you become more yourself, and if you're lucky, they'll let you witness their evolution too. So if a Sagittarius rat considers you a friend, know that you're part of something electric, erratic, and incredibly rare. They may not always be around, but when they are, they're all in. Not everyone can handle their speed or their space, but for those who can, the reward is one of the most exhilarating, soul-deep friendships you'll ever know. Business, the visionary strategist. This is the arena where the Sagittarius rat's true brilliance erupts into full technicolor. Business isn't just a career path for this personality. It's a chessboard, a playground, and a mission field all rolled into one. While others are stuck playing catch-up, the Sagittarius rat is already 3 moves ahead, pitching an idea no one else has thought of, or had the guts to say out loud. Sagittarius gives them the gift of bold vision, big picture thinking, and charisma that turns heads in boardrooms. The rat overlays this with cold-blooded strategy, analytical precision, and a talent for identifying weak points in systems, or in people. The result is a person who doesn't just hustle, they innovate, disrupt, and rebuild the game entirely. The way they operate in business is defined by energy and intuition. They don't make decisions based purely on spreadsheets or projections, though they're capable of it. Instead, they combine market logic with gut instinct in a way that feels almost prophetic. They'll back a product no one believes in, and 6 months later, it's on the cover of Fast Company. They'll exit a partnership just because it feels off, and sure enough, the numbers tank 6 weeks later. Their internal compass is absurdly sharp, and they trust it. That's what makes them such a powerful force. They don't wait for data to confirm what they already feel. They move early, boldly, and often successfully. They're naturally drawn to entrepreneurship and innovation because they hate following rules they didn't write. Sagittarians by nature are allergic to restriction, and rats need mental stimulation to stay engaged. That means traditional, hierarchical structures are often a terrible fit. Put a Sagittarius rat in a rigid 9-to-5 cubicle job with endless meetings and outdated protocols, and you'll see them emotionally flatline in record time. But drop them into a chaotic startup or let them build their own project from scratch, and they'll thrive like a storm in the desert. Give them space, trust, and the power to bend rules, and they will generate magic out of thin air. Their leadership style is unconventional but magnetic. They lead through vision and charisma, not control. They inspire rather than intimidate. A Sagittarius rat boss isn't likely to hover over your shoulder. They're more interested in asking the big questions. What could we do differently? What are we afraid to try? How do we break the ceiling instead of polishing the floor? Their teams often describe them as exciting, chaotic, and strangely intuitive. They might not remember your birthday, but they'll remember your breakthrough idea in a meeting 6 months ago, and make sure you get credit for it. Loyalty matters to them, especially when it's earned through competence and creativity. Trend spotting is practically a sixth sense for them. The rat brings mental agility and market awareness, and Sagittarius brings cultural breadth and global curiosity. They're always scanning the horizon, not just for where the industry is headed, but for how people are changing, how narratives are evolving, and what new opportunities might be hiding in plain sight. This makes them killer marketers, savvy investors, and near-psychic product developers. They don't just ride waves, they create them. Often, they're mocked or doubted in the early stages, only to be hailed as visionaries after the dust settles. Their rebellious streak is actually a secret weapon. They don't break rules for the sake of it, they do it because they see beyond them. Sagittarius rats challenge industry norms not out of arrogance, but because they genuinely believe there's a better way. And they're usually right. They spot inefficiencies, question authority, and find loopholes others miss. They can be disruptive, but in a productive, innovative way. When they're allowed to push boundaries, their energy becomes contagious. But when they're micromanaged or bogged down by bureaucracy, their light dims fast. If you try to clip their wings, they won't stick around. They'll find, or build, somewhere else to fly. Money is not just a means to an end for them, it's a tool for freedom. The rat gives them a sharp sense for finance, when to save, where to invest, how to build long-term security. Sagittarius adds boldness, the confidence to make big moves that others hesitate to try. They're not gamblers, but they're not scared of risk. They understand calculated risks better than most, and they're excellent at stacking the odds in their favor. They'll throw down on an investment others think is crazy, but it's backed by 10 hours of research and a gut instinct honed by experience. They're not afraid to bet on themselves, and they often win big. Their ideal business roles are those that allow freedom, fluidity, and impact. Startups are perfect because they get to build something new every day. Creative industries appeal to their visionary nature and give them the space to color outside the lines. Sales, marketing, and communications suit their charm and persuasive flair. Coaching or public speaking lets them inspire and lead without being shackled to a desk. And anything involving travel, culture, or global thinking, that's where they explode with genius. They need to move, intellectually, physically, and emotionally, or they'll burn out. But with all this brilliance comes a unique challenge: follow through. Sometimes, they get so lit up by the next idea that they abandon the current one before it's fully matured. That's where teamwork comes in. A Sagittarius rat paired with a grounded, detail-oriented collaborator is an unstoppable duo. They need people who can handle the logistics while they chase the fire. Alone, they can be brilliant but scattered. With the right support, they become empires. In the end, business for a Sagittarius rat isn't just about profit. It's about purpose. They want to leave a mark, to innovate, inspire, and maybe even disrupt entire industries. They're not here to play it safe. They're here to change the game. And if they're given the room to lead with vision and execute with strategy, there's virtually no limit to what they can create. Dark sides, the charming storm. Let's not sugarcoat it. Every bright star casts a shadow, and the Sagittarius rat can cast a pretty wide one when left unchecked. At their best, they're magnetic and inspiring, but when their darker impulses take over, that same fire can burn bridges, ideas, and people. Recklessness is one of their most common flaws. Fueled by Sagittarius's love for risk and the rat's hyperactive brain, they sometimes jump into new ventures, relationships, or ideologies without fully thinking things through. They can be so enchanted by the possibility of something that they bypass all practical considerations. What seems like bold vision to them might look like delusion to everyone else, and when reality catches up, they're often already chasing the next big thing. Impulsivity is their close cousin and just as dangerous. The Sagittarius rat doesn't always pause to consider consequences, especially when emotionally triggered or craving stimulation. They may say things they later regret, spend money they shouldn't, or make life-altering choices based on a momentary feeling. The rat, for all its cunning, sometimes fuels a sense of urgency that feels strategic in the moment, but is really just a clever justification for impatience. Combine that with Sagittarius's live free or die attitude, and you've got someone who can destroy good things in pursuit of more, even if what they already have is enough. Their obsession with freedom can lead them down a path of avoidance and emotional neglect. While autonomy is vital to their mental health, there's a dangerous edge to it. They can become so committed to not being tied down that they avoid accountability altogether. Responsibilities start to feel like shackles, even when they're self-imposed. Relationships feel restrictive, promises feel suffocating. In trying to outrun obligation, they can leave people, and important projects, in the dust. Ghosting isn't beneath them, especially when a situation starts to feel too heavy or emotionally demanding. They'll vanish, claiming they needed space, when in reality they just didn't want to face the discomfort of growth. Their words, usually their superpower, can become weapons when they're stressed or cornered. The Sagittarius rat has a sharp tongue and even sharper instincts about people's weak spots. When threatened or impatient, they may lash out with brutally honest remarks that hit below the belt. They don't always mean harm, but they can be careless, especially when in defense mode. It's a kind of intellectual arrogance. They assume people can take the truth just because they can. But not everyone operates that way, and their lack of emotional filter can cause lasting damage to personal and professional relationships. Consistency is another major challenge. They're incredible at starting things, ideas, relationships, routines, but terrible at maintaining them. Their restless energy makes it hard to follow through, especially when the initial spark fades. They may abandon a great idea because something newer and shinier comes along. They may bail on commitments because the daily grind doesn't excite them. Sagittarius wants expansion. The rat wants stimulation, and neither is naturally drawn to the slow, sometimes boring discipline of seeing things through. Without structure, their talent and momentum often go wasted. Their curiosity, while often a strength, can backfire in spectacular ways. They have a need to know, to try, to experience, but sometimes that leads them into situations they're not ready for, or that compromise their integrity. They may explore emotional, romantic, or financial territory with the belief that it'll all work out, only to realize too late that they've crossed a line. Regret follows not from moral failure, but from failing to think it through. They don't always ask, "Should I?" before diving into "Can I?" And when it backfires, they may try to intellectualize the fallout instead of owning it emotionally. Emotional detachment is another common dark trait. When overwhelmed, the Sagittarius rat may disconnect entirely. They don't like feeling trapped or exposed, so they retreat into logic, sarcasm, or outright avoidance. This can be painful for those closest to them, who may feel iced out or dismissed when they need connection most. Their defense mechanism is to detach, analyze, and rationalize, often while those around them are still reeling from something they've caused. They can come off as cold, even cruel, not because they lack empathy, but because they fear vulnerability might compromise their autonomy. Relationship sabotage is a particularly insidious pattern for some Sagittarius rats. The moment things get too serious, or the emotional stakes get too high, they might start picking fights, creating distance, or doing something, consciously or not, to blow it all up. Why? Because deep down, they fear losing themselves in someone else's expectations. They'd rather end something on their own terms than risk being emotionally owned. This fear of being ordinary, of being swallowed by convention or mediocrity, drives them to destroy the very things that might offer them stability and growth. And perhaps the biggest shadow of all, ego. When unchecked, their confidence can mutate into arrogance. Sagittarius energy is idealistic, while the rat is calculating, meaning they often believe they know best. They might dismiss feedback, reject collaboration, or double down on poor choices just to maintain control. Their need to be unique, different, or ahead of the curve can blind them to their blind spots. They crave admiration, but struggle with humility. And when they're hurt, their pride becomes a fortress no one can breach. Even when they know they're wrong, admitting it can feel like defeat, and they hate to lose more than they like to win. To truly grow, the Sagittarius rat must learn to ground their brilliance in consistency, and to temper their need for freedom with a willingness to connect, commit, and stay. They have to understand that responsibility doesn't kill creativity, it focuses it. That finishing things is just as powerful as starting them. That vulnerability doesn't mean giving up independence, it means choosing deeper intimacy on your own terms. When they begin to recognize that freedom isn't the absence of connection but the presence of self-awareness, they unlock a version of themselves that's not just charming, but truly powerful. Because the storm, when mastered, becomes fuel. And a Sagittarius rat who learns to harness their chaos is unstoppable. Life goals: shooting for stars, landing on purpose. A Sagittarius rat isn't here for the white picket fence version of life. Conformity bores them. Stability, unless it's on their terms, feels like surrender. They're not chasing the standard checklist of adulthood, they're chasing the extraordinary. For them, life isn't something to manage or plan, it's something to expand. They want a life that reads like a novel, not a brochure. And not just any story, they want a plotline full of unexpected twists, colorful characters, impossible odds, and epic wins. Everything they do is motivated by a deep-rooted desire to live larger than life, to squeeze out every last drop of potential, to avoid mediocrity like it's a contagious disease, and to create a narrative they'll be proud to look back on, again and again. Their core motivator is freedom. Intellectual freedom, financial freedom, emotional freedom, geographical freedom. They want space, to think, to grow, to explore. The moment they feel boxed in, they start plotting an escape route. That's not immaturity, that's design. Sagittarius energy thrives on movement and philosophy, and the rat adds a constant itch for clever reinvention. The combination makes them nearly impossible to domesticate in the traditional sense. But give them a life path that's flexible, high stakes, and driven by impact, and they'll commit with astonishing stamina. Their goals must allow them to breathe, to create, to evolve. Anything less is a slow death in their world. They're obsessed with legacy, but not in the conventional sense. It's not just about leaving behind a name, it's about leaving behind meaning. They want to build things that last: companies, books, brands, platforms, systems, art, movements, something with their fingerprints all over it. They don't just want to succeed, they want to matter. They crave impact, the kind that shifts a room, shapes a generation, or challenges the status quo. They dream of standing on stages, publishing ideas, mentoring others, making bold statements that ripple into something tangible. They don't want applause, they want to know they changed something, even if it's just one mind at a time. Their appetite for growth is unmatched. The Sagittarius rat is rarely satisfied with one role, one title, or one skill set. They collect experiences and education like others collect souvenirs. They might be a graphic designer today, a startup founder next year, and a public speaker 5 years after that. It's not flakiness, it's expansion. They thrive on challenge. When things become too easy, too predictable, or too linear, they get bored and start reinventing themselves. To them, evolution is not optional. It's fuel. They're constantly asking, what else can I be? Where else can I go? What's the next edge I haven't explored yet? Travel often plays a huge role in their life goals, but not just for relaxation. They travel to learn, to transform, to gather stories. Every city becomes a mirror. Every culture, a new language for understanding themselves. They don't just want to visit places, they want to live in them, work from them, belong to them. Remote work, global citizenship, multi-country residencies, these aren't luxury dreams to the Sagittarius rat. They're necessities. Staying in one place too long makes them feel like they're wilting. New environments spark their brain. They see the world not as something to escape to, but as something to partner with. And their goals almost always involve some form of global integration, even if it's just a mindset. They're serial creators. They dream of building something from scratch, something that didn't exist until they brought it to life. Whether it's a company, a community, a brand, a book, or a movement, they feel most fulfilled when they're the architect of something meaningful. They're often early adopters or trendsetters, jumping on ideas long before they're cool, not because they're chasing clout, but because their minds work 10 steps ahead. Starting from zero doesn't scare them, it excites them. They'd rather fail building something bold than succeed at maintaining something safe. Their deepest pride often comes from knowing, this exists because I dared to create it. Restlessness is part of their operating system. Stagnation feels like suffocation, and they know it. That's why they rarely stick with one job, location, or identity for too long. They embrace change the way others embrace routine. And they don't fear endings, they see them as evolution. Reinvention isn't a crisis for the Sagittarius rat, it's a ritual. With each transformation, they get closer to their core. It's not about being inconsistent, it's about being alive. Their life goals often shift, but the underlying purpose remains: to express the full spectrum of who they are, without apology. Ultimately, what the Sagittarius rat wants most is to live without regret. To them, the idea of looking back on life and wondering, what if, is worse than failure, heartbreak, or risk combined. They'd rather leap and fall than stay and rot. They define success not by money or titles, but by whether they followed their instincts, pursued meaning, and told the truth. They want to look back and know they said yes to the wild, the strange, the brave, and the beautiful. That they lived on purpose, not because they had to, but because they chose to, every step of the way. Their life is a mosaic, not a straight line. And that's exactly how they like it. In summary, the Sagittarius Rat is the embodiment of organized chaos, a soul driven by wild instincts, yet backed by razor-sharp strategy. They are a walking contradiction in the most exhilarating way. Imagine someone who jumps out of planes but also calculates wind speed before doing it. They're both the wanderer and the architect. They dream without limits but plan like a general. This duality makes them magnetic. People can't quite figure them out, but they know they're watching something extraordinary in motion. That's the magic of the Sagittarius Rat. They are never quite what you expect, but always more than you imagined. They don't follow paths, they make them. Whether in love, career, or self-discovery, the Sagittarius Rat isn't content with pre-made blueprints. They crave uncharted territory and self-authored destinies. They're allergic to sameness, suspicious of comfort zones, and totally uninterested in the way it's always been done. They seek out life's edge and invite others to join them there, not out of recklessness, but because they know that's where true transformation lives. To watch them build something from nothing is to witness ambition wrapped in artistry, risk tempered by brilliance. They are incredibly self-aware, often more than people realize. Beneath their fire and charm lies a mind that never stops scanning, learning, decoding. They know their flaws, they know their patterns, and when they choose to evolve, they don't do it in half measures. A Sagittarius Rat on a mission to grow is unstoppable. They'll read the books, ask the hard questions, burn down the old version of themselves, and rise better. They're not afraid of who they've been, and they're certainly not afraid of who they might become. Self-reinvention isn't scary to them, it's sacred. Relationships with them are rarely smooth, but they are never dull. Loving a Sagittarius Rat is like boarding a rocket, exhilarating, a little unpredictable, and absolutely worth the ride. They will challenge you, they will test you, but they will also inspire you, surprise you, and support you in ways no one else can. They give love that's fiery, intelligent, and deeply sincere, once they decide you're worth trusting. And if you try to cage them, they'll vanish. But if you offer partnership instead of possession, they'll be loyal beyond measure. They don't fall for just anyone, but when they do, they fall with force. At their best, they are the perfect paradox. Humble yet proud, disciplined yet wild, grounded yet airborne. They live at the intersection of contradiction, and that's exactly where their genius lies. One moment, they're philosophical and introspective. The next, they're dancing on a rooftop with no shoes and no plan. They're strategic dreamers, practical idealists, and adventurous minds that somehow never stop thinking, even in the middle of chaos. It's this internal complexity that makes them unforgettable to everyone who crosses their path. If you are a Sagittarius Rat, consider this your cosmic permission slip to keep being you, unapologetically. Keep chasing what thrills you. Keep reinventing what doesn't. But remember, too, that depth doesn't cancel freedom, and roots can grow without chaining you down. Take a breath, let people in, stay wild, but stay aware. Because the world doesn't just need your fire. It needs your focus. And if you happen to love a Sagittarius Rat, hold them like water, not too tightly, not too loosely. Show them you see them, not just their spark, but the structure underneath it. Don't try to change them. Invite them to be even more of who they are. If you can handle the pace and embrace the mystery, you'll find yourself partnered with someone who will teach you to live bigger, dream louder, and question everything, including yourself. Loving them isn't easy, but it might just change your life. So here's to the Sagittarius Rat. The rarest of blends, the storm with a purpose, the fire with a plan. Hard to catch, harder to keep, absolutely impossible to forget.